Thank you, Marty. By the way, Josh, I'm a little disappointed I don't get to see you in person. You're looking sharp.
Thank you so much.
I'm the only I'm the only guy that looks like he's not in a rock band in this panel, which is a little bit disappointing to me. Nevertheless, listen, thanks for the introduction, Marty. That's a really tough act to follow. I don't know how to do that when we're talking about manufacturing and space and ESG and investing in potentially breakthrough technologies, but we'll give it a shot. So as by the way, Tyson, as an aside, I'm actually coming to you live from Charleston. I'm usually based out of New York, but I'm in Charleston, South Carolina today. So maybe we should connect offline. But as Marty alluded to, my name is Dan Marcus. I'm a professor at NYU. Among the other things that I do by training and by trade, I'm an attorney. I have my own firm where I work on work with a lot of different clients, specifically in sports, entertainment, and by virtue of the other guy sitting here, or largely in part to the other guy sitting here, Ray Jenko, in crypto, which is why I've got a little bit of street cred in this space. The classes I teach at NYU are in the sports business program, but the primary class I teach is about the business of competitive gaming. So when we talk about things like the metaverse and digital assets, we're really talking effectively about the video game universes that were built in this space originally. And prior to that, I was a founder, and I just got my hands in a number of other businesses related to the spaces I like to dabble in, specifically sports and entertainment, and now crypto. And I'll kick it around the room and let these other guys introduce themselves. So why don't you go ahead, Josh, and then you, Ray.
Check. Okay. Hi, I'm Joshua Johnson. Nice to meet everyone. Beyond Meta Holdings. Our main focus has been really just helping onboard the next billion people into Web3 through various roles in gaming, particularly. Roblox being a main platform of that, and education being the need for really the masses to understand what is going on. And really today, we'd love to delve into that education side, and especially kind of crossing over to what you discussed in gaming, what that looks like for the future. So that's an intro.
Ray, what about you? You're on mute. No, you're not.
Thank you. Yeah, that last panel was very eye-opening. I love those discussions, Josh, Dan, and Marty. It's very cool to be here. I'm an attorney as well. Maybe 25% practice and the rest kind of investing or co-investing with my little cohort. Almost exclusively Web3, blockchain, NFT, smart contract based technology. I'm very, very excited about it. It's a place to learn a lot. And I think some of the smartest founders are in this space. So it's ripe with business ideas and concepts that may not intuitively seem investable, but the people behind it and the founders are really, really very special visionaries. So I'd love to hear, Josh, I'm sure you have a lot of insight into the special people that are in that Web3. So I'm looking forward to this discussion, and I'm not sure which way it will go, but sure. I pass it back to Dan.
Yeah, let me, I've got a microphone too as well, even though I'm coming to you from afar. So I like a good prop. But hey, Josh, let's actually start where I know you wanted to go, because I think it's the way I'll start any of these conversations, right? We hear terms of art like Web3 and crypto and NFTs. So, and I think if you ask 10 different people, you might get 10 different definitions. So I'll start with you, Josh, because you want to talk about education. Let's educate us. What does Web3 mean? What does that refer to? What does that encompass? Like, let's define our terms before we branch.
Yeah, I think, and again, there's different imageries that we can kind of the rewrite, own. I think for us, onification, without going too deep into it, we coined the phrase onification. So owning your own data, owning your own journey for that. So in a gamified term, when you see that journey in the gaming, whether it's like Mario Brothers, you're actually going through your journey in that game, you're actually being able to see it come to life, and you get to see in your wallet your identity. You get to see what you own, whether your house or your coins or your identity. So in the wallet, it's very important to see everything that you can now tangibly touch. So your whole life now can be in a digital format in a physical and non-physical world. Web3 for us is allowing everyone to make that real to them. And so for me to bring that to life in the same way, like the metaverse is just a digital form of the physical world, just bringing that physical and non-physical and connecting that value set and making it real where you can now benefit from it as a user. Where in Web 2, you had basically the giants benefit from it, and they benefited from your data, for example, and they monetized it. But Web 3, you get to take back that ownership. You get to take back, if you're riding in an Uber in a decentralized way, in a Web 3 way, you would be able to own that transaction. You would be able to own that journey in that sense. And so you would be able to turn on and off certain features that in the past, a centralized entity would be able to control that.
So what I'm hearing from you is the hallmark of Web3 is effectively control. So when we're going from Web 2 to Web 3, we're taking it from a centralized economy to a decentralized economy. Is that
right?
Fair to say?
And yes, and that control being truth as well. So everything in financial services, meaning like the US dollar, is all about truth. It's all about trust. So again, there's basically nothing backing it but the trust of the world. And so being able to see that trust and truth, being able to back a technology being the middleman, and that truth being technology saying there's that middleman is truth, meaning trust in the technology. You don't have to just say, oh, there's nothing backing it. I think that's the beauty of Web3 is there is the technology that's backing it, and the middleman is actually the technology. So for example, Uber, if it's decentralized, the rider and driver get to trust the technology as the middleman, and in that sense, instead of Uber being the centralized company in Web 2 being that middleman that you have to trust Uber as an entity, if that makes sense.
Cool. Yeah, we're gonna put a bookmark in that one because I'm gonna come back to you because I came to a realization that pushes back on the whole notion of decentralization. But like we'll save it for later as a tease. Ray, what about you? How would you define this? What would you have to add to this as far as like a definition of what Web3 and this crypto world is all about?
Web3 is one of those terms that some people like, some people see it as a marketing, but I couldn't agree more with what Joshua said. It's about ownership. I like how he put it, ownership of the journey. I wrote down here ownership and control, and you took that word as well. It's the best. It's the idealist. It's the naive version of what people thought FANG, like Facebook and social media was. They thought it was this innocent pathway where they owned their timeline and they owned their data before it got kind of shifted and exposed. It really is the promise of Web 2 is a lot of what Web 3 is, I think.
So I want to give each of you the ability to pump your tires because I think everyone has come into this space or had their own journey into it in a different way. And Ray, I know yours, like, I know you don't like to mention this. I'll do it for you, but this is a little bit of a tease and you pick it up from here. I know you came from the world of entertainment, specifically sports, right? You represented a few big figures in sports. And so and entertainment as well. So I'm wondering, just for the benefit of the audience, how you got involved and what made you fundamentally buy into all of this.
And for the audience, and I know there's a crowd of folks with diverse kind of positions and kind of goals here. If I leave, one or a few of you with just a better, more comfortable understanding of when Josh says the metaverse, I think because it's going to creep up and you shouldn't shy away from it just because it's new. I'm not saying to invest in it if it's not your thing. But to me, I was so very attracted to it because my legal and consulting practice was really mainly representing talent, and talent drives culture, and talent drives results. And oftentimes talent gets a sliver of the financial pie that they create in the entertainment and sports world and art world. And the smart contract technology allows, and as he mentioned, the ownership aspect of the Web3 technology allows talent to really own the process and own a larger share. So once I understood that that's what the technology was, I was very interested in learning about it and very interested in seeing what applications can we bring to my people who really make a living on their talent, whether it's writing or art or running fast, you know. So that really, and that's, we've only seen a sliver of that being unlocked yet. Like the future's very, very bright for talent, I think.
Yeah, so I know you won't do this yourself, but for those that are into sports and wonder who Ray has worked with, Pete Rose is probably the biggest one you'll find, and that's a whole separate panel discussion if you're interested. And also Bryce Young, who happened to win the Heisman Trophy. I know you guys are in Texas for the most part, so college football is a big thing. Although
Yes.
I'm sure there's not a lot of Bama fans in the
Texas gave him a big run. Texas gave him a run, and Pete was fun. But really, that's the world that can improve, that I saw improving. When you talk about agriculture, when you talk about shipping and logistics, when you talk about all of these other high tech and high finance industries, they're going to benefit as well. Not to cut you off, Dan, but, it's not just that. Yeah,
that's perfect. And Josh, I want to give you the same opportunity. Like, what was your aha moment? Because obviously this has become like your brand, and you know where you spend most, if not all, of your time.
I think utility is everything for us. I was in China 2016, 17. I was in Sinopharm, largest pharmaceutical supply chain in China, and I saw blockchain and the utility of blockchain as a supply chain mechanism, as a use case. There's trillions of dollars in supply chain. And so I think that transaction cost in the financial system as a whole, that track and trace mechanism is such a big and vast thing to bite off. It's a beast. So we were basically connecting that to the Chinese digital currency, CBDC there in China. And unfortunately, China's kind of used it in some ways not so much as Web3 based, like decentralized, more centralized. And that's a whole nother discussion, but I learned a lot from that. And so coming from that side, it's taught me a lot to understand the good and bad of everything. So I think that's been interesting to see utility though applied at such a large scale. China's kind of proven what's possible, I guess, and a lot internally hasn't been disclosed. But that from a government point of view, it's incredible what they've done. So just seeing that, starting the journey, and then now being able to educate the world. Marty, what were you saying? Yes, it's a private ledger. So it's not even really blockchain. It's more of a centralized ledger. But they're using, in their mind, the checks and balances for what benefits them. So I wouldn't even say it's a blockchain. It's more of a centralized ledger. But they apply a lot of tokenomics that other people, so they have the innovation of the world, being able to pull the best of, but then they get to shut on and off things for their economy in different ways. And
so I was waiting, and I think we're like maybe 15, 20 minutes into this, and the first time blockchain came up, the term blockchain came up was actually just a moment ago. And so if you ask me, as far as, you know, Web3, crypto, et cetera, what are we referring to when we're talking about these things? We're talking about the application of this underlying blockchain technology. So let me kick it around the room, because there's been a lot of, you know, the title of this talk is crypto assets and valuation, et cetera. Ray, I'll start with you. In terms of blockchain in this world, what's the best application that you've seen of the blockchain technology that is worth betting on for the people in this room, or that you've bet on personally?
I think the bets moving forward are infrastructure plays to build out this Web3 that we're talking about. So I think they're ahead of us. But one of the major applications is provenance in digital art, and that may mean very little. It initially meant very little to me, but when you look at the ability for secondary royalties of a creator to collect on subsequent sales, it really empowers, again, it empowers talent. But so as the largest application has been this digital art, and I think that's almost a sandbox or a test case, getting folks' feet wet. You're now going to see a growth in the next 12, 18 months of wonderful, wonderful guardrails and infrastructure that then other industries can plop their digital assets into, whether it be big brands like the NFL or other entertainment properties, Disney. I think IP rights are going to be revolutionized with this smart contract NFT type technology. So I think the applications thus far are rudimentary compared to where we're going to be very, very soon.
So the quick, concise answer is that you think NFT, like right now to date, NFTs with respect to digital creators have been the best application that you've seen, or the most useful
Of
application
smart
you've seen
contracts.
The smart
Not
contract.
of blockchain. Blockchain technology has a whole lot of that I look at as separate. That has financial implications, and I think DeFi, the ability for somebody to hold a digital asset and easily borrow against it and easily participate as a lender. I think those are revolutionary concepts. We're not there yet to cause a revolution yet, but I think those are very important seeds that have been planted.
I just have one quick question, Dan, for Ray. Can you talk a little bit about NIL rights in the college ranks?
Absolutely. That was the force. I was working with folks in the Pac-10. I was working with Matt, was a Michigan guy. We were working with folks there. Early pandemic, when there was a whole lot of cultural events that came to a head, and kids for the longest time had tremendous power and market power to sell product, to represent big companies. Nike and Reebok and Adidas spent millions and millions every year to associate with young athletes. Now the NCAA in 2021, 2020, I guess late 2020, implemented it last year, that the kids are now allowed to leverage NIL, which is name, image, and likeness rights. These rights allow you to be in a commercial for a car dealer. They allow you to sell autographs, put your name on a t-shirt, on a jersey. They allow the kids to kind of collectively bargain and license to New Era or Fanatics or whoever the Reebok would be to kind of make jerseys. It's incredibly powerful. I think the dollar signs that you'll see in the next 3 years, not just for the individual kids, but for the industries that build out around, like Open Door and other companies, are just unicorns, because it's like there's a need for the infrastructure around those kids. How does blockchain come into play? I focus on NFTs and smart contracts, where you can really own your audience, you can own your content. Now with guys like Bryce Young, or even I'm talking women's softball, women's gymnastics, women's basketball, college golf, you're going to see stars come out of those areas, and they're going to be great entrepreneurs. They're going to build big businesses, and there's going to be big businesses attached to them, I think, much earlier on, before they're drafted. And the smart contracts allow them to not just sell their NIL to or rent it to Pizza Hut or Frito-Lay, but instead build their own very profitable business.
And can I just jump in here with some little
Please.
factoids? So 95 of the top 100 rated TV shows last year were sports.
Wow.
Right. And I think that when you're talking about women's basketball, they're these twins. I don't know if they're at University of Michigan or Wisconsin, but they've transferred.
University of Miami.
University of Miami, and they've made $5 million in year one off of their
That's
image.
going to be, and that's nothing. And that's nothing.
And so, I mean, but there's been child actors for generations who endorsed stuff and made millions. So why should it be any different for athletes, right? So that's you know, the metaphor's right there. It's not hard to understand, right? Exactly. So it's very intriguing. Maybe there's a metaverse application for it too.
I hope so. Yeah, I think going back to answering your question, I think the biggest opportunities to even take a step back before where we are now, I think it's education is the biggest point, because right now Web 2, we're trying to transition, 6-7 billion people in the world that maybe not understand this. Maybe there's at most a few hundred million that understand. So being able to educate the rest of the world before we go mass adoption, I think that's for us before the greatest opportunity for any government. For example, financial literacy. If you're going to onboard a CBDC, a central bank digital currency in Thailand, like say the government, right? You're going to have education for adoption before that ever is going to take place. So financial, banking the unbanked. So financial literacy is already hard enough in fiat world, but doing that in the digital world, it's taking it to the new level. So I think education in general, just across the board, is kind of a step, I believe, before everything else. So even before you get, in a sense, like before basically the car picked up after the horse and buggy, in that kind of between like 2 and 3, it's almost 2.5, like Web 2.5. So I feel like we're still at the Web 2.5 of the world, understanding how do we transition and go from the horse and buggy to now, okay, the Model T at scale, to even understand helping the world understand what's happening and what's transpiring. So what are they missing, and how are they going to experience this to the fullest? So if you had a class to teach you about the internet before the internet happened, how much more could you capitalize on that internet? So this is the new internet. So I think the education for us, we see a big opportunity, especially in the downturn of the market. There's just such a vast opportunity to educate the people that don't know the price of Bitcoin, whether it be up or down, but they have the understanding of, oh, Nike's doing something cool in the metaverse through Roblox, for example, and that's mass market. So to get that indication of how invested they are is great to just educate them in a basic understanding.
So what are if you're teaching a 101 class on this, Josh, what are the 3 is an arbitrary number, but let's go with 3. Maybe there's more, maybe there's less. What are the 3 things anybody should know if they're going to even dabble in the space?
Well, if you're taking tangible things in our Roblox game for the kids, role playing, for example, like Leanne, my co-founder, her 4-year-old in a game, basically it's like Monopoly money. She opens a wallet, right? And she told her grandmother, like, oh, I opened my first crypto wallet, right? And it's learning without knowing she's learning. And this was without even knowing, Leanne didn't even know she was playing, right? So she's actually opening it and having this play money. To go back to that, I think a crypto wallet is a very key and fundamental of some type of a marketplace, like an NFT marketplace or some type of an exchange. Being able to see a ledger, to see how blockchain works is very important, like Etherscan or various things. I think that those things are very important, probably the 3 that I would choose. And that's basically our foundation in how we basically do all transactions and really for teaching anything. So if it's sustainability or anything that you could imagine, we have those Web3 mechanics as the incentive model to incorporate social tokens and NFTs and things as the baseline. So basically you're teaching these kids that, hey, in 20 years, this is the future of work and this is how we're doing. So replicating D work, for example. So that's basically, I think, the 3, but just going before we go too complex, those 3 I would say are the basics.
Got it. Well, let me ask you this, Ray, first, just to mix it up. What's the biggest misconception about the Web3 and crypto world when people rush into it before, getting fully educated? What are the things that people miss when they rush in? Josh, I'll give you the opportunity to respond to this as well.
What do they? I think that I don't know about the misconceptions of the crypto world, but what people miss when they come in is kind of the importance of self-custody and what that means, and security. There's just been too many stories of good people who learned about the company or the asset that they were putting their money with, but they didn't take the time to really learn the which still to this day is very rudimentary technology around what does it mean to have self-custody over your assets, and what are the best practices around that. Because so there's this conception that there's a lot of potential risk, volatility, and potential criminality and scams. And I hate to perpetrate that, but the reality is that's everywhere. And in this world, it's just fundamentally heightened because there isn't a centralized third party in most instances that you can call and undo an unauthorized transaction. And there are bad malicious actors anywhere who would take advantage of that. So really understanding security and self-custody, I think before I would just add to Josh's, because that's just, it's too many sad stories.
So Ray, I just actually have a quick remark,
Please.
which is that with regards to self-custody, I think we need to think besides capital. So somebody came to me recently with it's like a wrist device that has 10 terabytes of storage on it, and he says that his belief is that people will self-custody their own clouds, and it'll just link to the cloud, but they'll have the hard storage for their own cloud system on some kind of device on their wrist or in a ring or something like that, and then they'll charge clouds to have access to their personal information. So I think there's a blockchain application in that. So in other words, one of the big problems with the modern web and with social media is how it takes your personal information. And this is just the way to say, look, I 10 terabytes is cheap. I personally bought 10 terabytes, the other day on a cloud device for, a couple $100, right? Why would I pay for it on a yearly basis, right? So it's very cheap to get going forward, and people should just custody their information. And there's an educational aspect, as Josh was talking about, which is how do you do that? How do you think about how do you custody all your information, your browsing history, all your videos, et cetera, et cetera?
I think a zero knowledge proof, I think as it scales, it hasn't transpired. So the technology isn't there at scale yet. But I think zero knowledge proof, when we educate about that and help that, I think that will help. And you guys can talk about this as well. And that's a whole nother PhD lesson there. But that I think is going to help a lot of it, just to keep it short.
For those that are unaware, what is zero knowledge proof?
That's actually a little too complex to get into. This is it's like a PhD level, but yeah, we can basically post.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just laughing. It's a way it's one of the ways that a public ledger can really magnify its applications by allowing some transactions to stay private.
Right, and it's like saying, okay, I can prove without showing the identity of this person that he's not a terrorist coming on this plane. So basically, in the same way, you're gonna have zero knowledge proof. So no one has to know the identity of it, but we can know beyond a shadow of doubt in the ledger of 8 billion people that he isn't a terrorist. So that's basically the application of that. Right. Highly valued.
So I think there was a natural segue in all of this. When
So actually, can I talk about the mathematical since I have a degree in mathematics?
Absolutely, you're qualified.
So the perspective is it's a pigeonholing app, right? You're pigeonholing that in some respect, we can pigeonhole around who this guy is. He's not a terrorist, right? So just a comment, I was at a funeral of a guy from Portland recently, and his whole family are 70 years old and wearing ponytails because it's Portland, Oregon, right? And these guys all told me, they're all white guys, right? And they said, every time we go through TSA, we get pulled aside because they're 70 and they wear ponytails, right? Anyway, but they're the farthest thing from terrorists in the world.
As well, losing your keys, going back to that, losing your keys, having the zero knowledge proof attached to like multiple DAOs or other things that help the layers so you don't lose your keys, because even I don't want to hold on to my keys, like to have that so you don't lose the value. So in the same way, you want to ownify and own your everything in your life, but you don't want to basically lose your life either, because if you lost your keys, you've basically lost a lot of your identity in your life. So we have to basically help educate around that, but also help that problem set, and zero knowledge proof will help a lot of that as well. Coming back to what we discussed earlier. So.
I think we lost my segue, but we found it again, which was basically the whole theme here is decentralization. And I know what the answer is probably going to be for both of you, and mine is probably different. Is decentralization really that good of a thing? Because I'm sure all of us on this panel right now know somebody who has like an inordinate amount of wealth on a thumb drive somewhere. And there's a lot of anxiety that comes along with that. And I think there's a reason that centralization has been good for the average consumer with respect to, you know, the economy or just banking in general, because there is some peace of mind that you get from having an FDIC insured account, whereas having self custody, it's all on you and you can have your wealth go away like that. So the question that's lost in here, or the question that I want to bring back to the surface for both of you, I guess I'll start with Ray, you first. Is decentralization that great of a thing when you can theoretically lose your entire net worth just by leaving your thumb drive and your pants in the washing machine?
Well, that's a counselor. You framed the question in a way that I disagree with, because and we're friends. Dan is a good dear friend of mine. We've done these talks before, and I really respect what you have to say. On this, I disagree, and I'll take the position that we're not there yet for this truly decentralized world. I think that there are elements that we're going to see pop up, and I think that's a good thing. But decentralization does not mean you're on your own. You kind of have the choice to bundle up. There's Gnosis safes and all sorts of applications that allow community control and more than one person's control over the asset. And I think those guardrails are going to continue to keep, I'm working with a team like genius level devs in Israel on a product that will allow folks to really, you know, sleep better at night when it comes to this self-custody stuff. I think there's a lot of good products out there that are needed to address your position. So I don't think right now you should have, you know, all your wealth wrapped up, but the FDIC only insures up to so much. You have to put the surplus somewhere. So I think that we're not there yet, but we can be. And decentralized just means that it's more resilient to censorship than it is I'm not reliant on others for security, because in a decentralized world, I can still choose custodial services that will spring up.
Just
Fair
for
enough.
comment,
Josh, what about you?
FDIC insurance is FDIC insurance, I think, is $250,000. Is that right?
Yeah, $250,000.
That's not really much.
Yeah. No, just
than
echoing
zero.
that. Yeah. Exactly. No, again,
Better
I
than
think
zero, did he say?
echoing what you had just said and confirming that, I think we're not there yet. Again, kind of going back to the 2.5, the 2.5, you're kind of in between that transition. So zero knowledge proof isn't there. I think with zero knowledge proof and other things like that, with mathematics being able to help those checks and balances, anything good taken to the extreme can be bad. So I think we're right now in that balancing act of understanding. Of course, I mean, even as a DAO, running a DAO, we're not fully decentralized. Just the tech isn't there. It's not there. So as we have more technology to allow the DAO to run smoothly and for it to be there, I think of course it's going to be there. But right now, everything is testing, and that testing, just understanding what's possible, what's not. I think that's going to be the biggest thing. But there has to be first movers in the space to be able to test. And the same way, we do need an Elon Musk to push the boundaries of what's possible to go to Mars. If we didn't have Elon, everything would have happened a lot longer. So being able to push those boundaries and push and having smart people push to go faster, it's just making it go exponentially more.
Elon can go to Mars. I'm going down with this ship. Marty, I see you with the mic, so I don't know if this is if we're getting the hook here, but
I think we got about 1 minute for closing comments.
That's totally fine. Okay, closing comments. Then I'll actually pose a question that we might not even be able to answer. So historically, we talk about smart contracts, right? And if we're going to use, and it's probably a bad analog, but it's in the term, if we're going to use the analog of regular contracts, there's a reason that people went to lawyers like myself and Ray, because they wanted to be able to demystify the legalese to understand, am I getting screwed? Where are my rights? How is this happening? So we say all this we talk about decentralization, but if there's a smart contract that has to be built by a developer, we've taken what we used to read in plain English as the regular contract, and now we've made it even like an even more elite select few that understand what a smart contract, how a smart contract actually reads. So is this actually better? And is this truly decentralized if you're still relying on a third party developer or a network manager to be able to do it? So I don't know if there's a response to that. I'll let you guys plug whatever you want to plug, talk about whatever you want to talk about, but I wanted to let that hang in the air as maybe a to be continued.
I'm not going to go against it. I'm going to ponder that. I think
Yeah.
this is all a good thing. I think for the investors in the room, give it a consideration. Don't laugh kind of cartoon JPEGs out of the room. There's a lot of really, really brilliant people. Josh, I'm learning is one of them out there really, really working. If you're a builder outside of this space, stay curious and learn what a smart contract with the NFT kind of technology can do, because the applications we don't know all of the applications yet. Your expertise and your experience may, find one, and it may be very beneficial financially. So I really, really appreciate sharing this stage with all of you. Thank you.
Going back to your question, I think at playtolearn.com, one of our biggest sponsors is Prasaga, and they're transitioning from to smart assets, away from smart contracts. So basically as an operating system and objects without getting too technical. So because smart contracts they're not editable. So to edit that for like a commodities deal in real time every minute, you need to be able to edit. So something like that, I think if you need to, Prasaga.com has something related to your question in terms of how smart contracts will evolve.
Well, fantastic. Great job, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.